ICMA TV is exploring some of the biggest issues in city and county government and how this community is demonstrating the value of local government. And today we're talking about advocacy. And today I am joined by Wally Bobkiewicz and Phil Corrali. Thank you guys both for joining us this morning. I'm looking forward to this discussion. And the biggest question right now really is, why is local government so essential to our democracy? And I'll start with you, Phil.
Well, I think in a time of uncertainty, you look for the things that bring you comfort. And at the local level, we are the level of government that touches everyone's life nearly every day. We are the level of government that is, I would say, the most important from the standpoint of quality of life. And so in these times, particularly, you fall back and rely upon what you know is going to be there for you. And that is what our organizations provide.
What about you?
And I agree with Phil. One of the things that we do at the local level is a lot of complicated things. We provide water to your home. We make sure your streets are safe. And those take a lot of talented individuals to provide those services. And so one of the critical things right now is to help remind people that it does take experts to do those things. It takes experts to make sure that water gets to you. It takes experts to make sure those trees are properly maintained, that there's facilities for your families to enjoy, that the police and fire are there. So while people are concerned about government and the role of government, days pass, and there's still the need to have talented, qualified professionals to provide those.
As we're having this discussion, and we're talking about how these services really do directly impact the local community, and you have more interaction with your local leaders, but is local government and the value of it recognized how it should be?
In some places, yes. I'm privileged to be in a community that has a long history of council manager form and really a respect for it that has been cultivated over time. And in some places, we're seeing a lot of change toward that trust that's been built up. Expectations are different. There's a belief in some circumstances that managers aren't as accountable to the community as elected officials are. And I think that challenge is something that we're seeing much more lately, especially in Illinois. We've been dealing with that quite a bit over the last several years. And it's concerning on a number of levels. And I think it underscores why when we have those good, positive stories to tell about the successes of council manager forms of government and what they're able to accomplish, we have to tell those stories and share them widely so that they are understood.
What are you doing to tackle this? Because this is an issue that's been bubbling up, as you've said, for the last few years.
Communication is so important. The way people get information now is very different than it was 5 years ago, 10 years ago. There's not a local newspaper in many communities any longer where people can read what's happened at their city council. So they're looking at social media, they're looking at neighbors, and sometimes that information is not as accurate as possible. So it really is up to the local government to provide its own information, to provide newsletters. Where I'm at in Washington State, we have a lot of different kinds of newsletters we send our residents depending on their interest. They may not be interested in what's happening in our parks, but they may want to know about what's happening in the police department. And so we try to tailor that information, again, part of that transparency, part of gaining trust.
How about you?
Well, and I think government for a long time was passive in the way that we made information available. We were very transparent in what was on our websites, but if you were a resident, you had to go out and find that. You were looking to see what was going on. Now, what we're finding is the need to bring it to where those residents are. So, as Wally said, social media is a very important part of our communications plan, and we have to think about how we communicate. Pointing back to what Wally was saying about building that trust, we are doing these things in an effort to improve your quality of life, in an effort to improve our community, in an effort to make it safer, and using the media that they are consuming is just such an important part of what government does these days.
We have to make the stories personal. It can't just be look, we finished a project. It has to be, here is the staff member whose job it was to shepherd that project. And we try to focus on that individual, and people connect with stories. And so that's not something I think either Phil or I were taught when we were growing up as managers, to say we have to be storytellers.
Wally couldn't have said it better. We are now underscoring the people that do the work, because it helps people to understand where their tax dollars are going. It's not some amorphous thing. It's Joe. Joe is the city engineer. Joe is helping to rebuild your stormwater system, and he's going to explain to you how he's doing that. So I think that's also a big part of it, is demystifying the work. It's not something that we keep secret. It's something that we want to show you and prove to you and explain why it's so important.
And that's part of the transparency that you
Absolutely.
mentioned earlier, right?
We're in the democracy business.
Yeah.
Every day we come to work and we get to exercise democracy. And democracy is about teamwork. It's about the various players. It's about qualified professional staff. It's about dedicated elected officials, who spend lots of time dealing with these tough community issues. And it's about the members of the community themselves participating. Right. All that taken together is what makes democracy. And as the United States is really struggling with these definitions, I think we in local government every day show that democracy can work when we all work together. And that's really powerful.
What I'm hearing from you both as well is that government is a team sport. Like, we are all involved, and as we look to, next year, the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence, never has it been more relevant.
We have to always remind ourselves how we started as a country. We were leaving a country that we felt wasn't being fair to us, wasn't allowing individuals to do the kinds of things they want to do. And that's the basis of what we're founded on. And so now, as we look back now for 250 years, there are still those people. We may not have powdered wigs and short pants any longer, but there are still dedicated individuals every day who try to make democracy work. And one of the things we're trying to do with the local Gov 250 initiative is to recognize those people. We've talked about some of them here this morning, but there's so many folks that make up providing local services, and we should recognize and celebrate them because they're so essential to what we do.
Any closing thoughts when you think about why you do what you do?
I was talking to some ICMA fellows last night, and I said, there are very hard days. I will not lie. There are more days that I go home thinking that I didn't accomplish anything that I had hoped to accomplish than there are days where I'm like, oh, got it all done. But it's the understanding that you are continuing to contribute, you are stewarding your community for whatever time that you are in that place, and it is an opportunity to make lives better. And you will make lives better, and you do make lives better, even if it just is a little bit. In government, things sometimes move more slowly than we want them to, but it is our job to keep them moving. And I think it's just such a fulfilling career and such a great opportunity to continue to make lives better.
As I'm listening to both of you, you're giving me inspiration, and it's also the idea of really now more than ever, when you have those tough days, that's when you really have to dig your heels in and say, I have a passion for this. I'm going to continue to fight for my local community.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
I really appreciate both of you guys for this really interesting discussion today.
Thank you so much.